Hi, I'm Mike Coyle, and you're watching Inside Exploration. Today I'm here with Mark Selby, Chairman and CEO of Canada Nickel Company, listed on the TSX venture under CNC. Thanks for joining me today, Mark.
Yep, good to see you again, Mike. It's been a while.
Yeah, I guess the last time we spoke, we were at PDAC, and you had announced that you're picking up a few more land packages. That appears to have been closed now. So do you want to maybe start off with those land packages and let us know kind of what the plan is for those?
Sure. So, the thing with Crawford, we did our initial resource, which was the 11th largest nickel sulfide deposit on just 20% of the structure on our existing property. We also had the opportunity with Noble, given what we'd seen from the original Crawford drilling, that there are another of other targets within the larger Noble land package that have the potential to also be nickel bearing with the kind of grades that we've seen at Crawford. So, we optioned 5 separate packages. They're much earlier stage than Crawford, and so our focus right now is on Crawford and getting the PEA done. And so the drilling results that also just came out, are from our existing Crawford property. Later in the year, we'll start, doing the geophysics. We've got a pretty good view in terms of how the geophysics ties up to what the good grade material that we want to see. So we'll do that first, and then that'll target the drilling probably, that we'll do next winter time, because in that part of the world, it's often easier to get around in the winter time. So no, I'm very excited. Again, this is, we always talk about the scale potential of this asset and the value potential of this asset. And so, having, being able to, make it, potentially a multiple of what we've already got is very exciting.
And I'd like to touch on some of that a little bit after, but I want to know, what geophysics are you planning on doing on these? I mean, it's my understanding that a lot of them have already been relatively explored with geophysics, but what are you doing?
No, most of them to date have historically been just mag. And so, what they had done with Crawford before we picked it up, and it's been, we've learned a lot as we've actually drilled the deposit, is a combination of mag, gravity, and EM. And, it's a combination of 2 or more of those that sort of point to some of the higher grade material. And so, we'll fly that whole suite of geophysics on those other targets. Again, with a large land package and large potential resource, it's, a lot of resource companies just sit there and drill away and add ounces and add tons for the sake of drilling, just adding ounces.
Mm-hmm.
We're really focused on adding value through the exploration, and we'll, our drilling to date, and you'll see in the results we've got so far, is we're focused on those areas, where we think we have the highest grade potential to get more of that 0.35, 0.4% material, which, again, will have a massive impact on the economics for the scoping study, which we we will have done by the end of the year.
So what one of these particular 5 targets do you think you're going to be going after more aggressively than the others this year?
I don't know if they'll, we'll again fly the geophysics suite over it and see what the geophysics tell us. Kingsmill had a few drills on it in the past. Couple part of it not so exciting, but then another part of it seems pretty intriguing actually, and looks similar, much more similar to what we've got at Crawford. So, there's a few old Inco holes where the Inco put 1 or 2 holes into, a number of anomalies. And again, there's a couple in the package in the north part of Crawford into Nesbitt, that are also pretty intriguing. But, again, it's easy to start drilling. The key thing is, let's get the geophysics done. That's the cheapest way to explore a larger land package. And then we'll use that to target our drilling and make sure, we've been very good so far about, adding tons of resource for very few exploration dollars. And we want to sort of keep that mentality and keep that focus going as we move forward here.
So back at PDAC, when we last spoke, you only drilled off 20% of the structure. You already had the 12th largest nickel sulfide cobalt resource in the world. And now you just went ahead and extended your PGMs. You've found a new nickel discovery. And my understanding, that's just to the north of the main resource zone, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the main zone was the initial focus, and that was less than 20% of the overall structure. And again, so we've made some pretty big step outs. there's some other projects out there that have had some pretty high grade, sexy intersections, and it's always nice to have higher grade. But in terms of, again, being able to build the resource and the scale, that the majors would ultimately want to own, we're doing, we're not doing 20-meter step outs, we're doing kilometer step outs. So the East anomaly, we always believed geologically was just a faulted off extension of our main zone. And what we've seen in the results, we've got assays back on 2 holes, and we've got a number of assays pending from the other holes. But, it was very exciting to see that, the assays from the first hole, yielded 0.42% nickel over 55 meters, which is the highest grade interval we've seen in the main nickel dunite. And importantly, the PGM grades of those was 0.2 grams per ton, which is about 6 times the average in our existing resource. So, very, very happy again that first hole that yielded, those kinds of results. We stepped out another kilometer from that to test another higher grade portion, what we think would be higher grade portion, and again hit multi-hundred meters of typical, what are called typical Crawford grade mineralization. So that was, very exciting. The other piece, and as what's again, we've been very focused on the nickel, but the PGM potential of the properties, is getting, I think as much or even equally exciting. So we stepped around 1.2 kilometers up to what we call the thumb, is the tip of the northeast tip of the main anomaly. And not only did we hit 1 PGM zone, we hit 3 PGM zones, and one of those zones was 2.6 grams per ton over 7.5 meters within a 12-meter interval. Those 3 intervals combined were almost 30 meters of grade, around 1.5 grams per ton. So those are starting to be pretty compelling PGM grades and PGM widths. And again, there's a huge amount of coverage to hit on our east zone holes. So the 2 holes that we have assays for, both of those intersected the same PGM zone that we saw on the main anomaly. So that's now been extended, over 3 kilometers long. And again, with those kinds of, 1+ gram per ton grades that start at surface, just below the soil cover, that starts to get very, very exciting and offer some real scale potential, for the PGM zone separate from the nickel deposit itself.
So what would the value of these platinum and palladium grades be? I know a lot of people see it and they're like, oh, that's sexy, that looks good. But what does that translate to value-wise as part of the larger package?
Yeah, the key piece, so sort of the initial sort of PGM zone step back from the main nickel ore body by 100 meters, where that is very helpful is in terms of sort of additional byproduct credits for the main nickel deposit. So, the benefit of finding satellite deposits next to next to a very large deposit is that if you build a large mill and you have a resource that you can then, pull material into an existing piece of infrastructure, then that, can really add some nice incremental cash flow to the project. This latest drill hole, this 2.6 grams per ton, and the 3 separate intervals, that starts to look like, wow, that could be, a standalone, PGM potential. So we'll see. Again, it's there. We know it's there, and then it'll be just a matter of prioritizing the targets as we go through here and continue to drill. Our focus is on getting that PEA done by the end of the year, leading right into a feasibility study that'll be done by the end of 2021. Again, it's people get high grade very easily. People sometimes struggle with low grade, and I'm very confident in terms of what the economics are going to demonstrate, given my experience with Dumont at RNC. So, we want to get those economics in place so investors can see just how much value you can create from a larger, lower grade deposit like we have, at Crawford. And the reality is, again, when you step back and you look at the other large nickel sulfide discoveries that have been made over the last few decades, and again, you only get 1 or 2 of them per decade, and they tend to get taken out. They have been taken up between scoping study and feasibility study. So, the sooner we can get that, the sooner we can clearly demonstrate value to investors, and the broader mining industry, I think, will allow us to continue to, push our share price higher. We've had a great run to date. We started trading just before COVID exploded at the end of February. But despite that, we've moved the share price from 25 cents up to $1.25. We successfully raised another $4.5 million, which will give us the cash to deliver the PEA, in the midst at the peak of the pandemic. So I think it's a big salute from the investing base, in both nickel and our project specifically, that we're able to continue to raise that kind of money during some challenging times. And so we're in the fortunate position to be able to have the cash we need to deliver those next series of milestones.
So along the lines of next series of milestones, Spruce Ridge did a bunch of metallurgical work, kind of preemptive to you coming in and taking over this project. And you've done a lot of that metallurgy work with Dumont, and this seems to be relatively similar. What kind of recovery grades would you be expecting to see once you get through that process?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, we won't know for sure, but the good thing is, what intrigued me about the deposit initially was the amount of sulfur in the system. Flotation cells that are used in most sulfide mining projects, they attach themselves to sulfur and they pull whatever minerals attached to the sulfur along with it. So the fact that those first few drill holes looked like it had a decent amount of sulfur in it was helpful. The key thing here is just to do the mineralogy work. So we released back mid-March the first 100 samples back that we got from, and we're using both XPS and SGS to do this work. And we saw, 90% in the higher grade core area, 90% of the nickel was in minerals that are potentially recoverable by flotation. And then on the, in the lower grade areas, about 60%. And both of those numbers compare pretty favorable to other projects that I've been involved with. So we'll move into the summer now into June, July in terms of doing the next phases of recovery work. So, I'm pretty optimistic that, we should end up, with some, pretty decent results. Dumont was a 45% recovery life of mine to a 29% nickel concentrate. My guess is at this point we should be able to do better than that on the recovery side. But because there's more sulfur around, that the nickel content of our minerals won't be quite as high. So we'll probably end up with a 20 or 25% type of concentrate grade. But again, those very early days, those entirely speculating. But based on my experience, that's kind of likely where we'll end up.
And you have the platinum and palladium as a byproduct, which kind of balances things out a little bit for you.
Oh, big time. And that's where, again, I'm very excited about, where the scoping study, the results that we're going to be able to show with that is, that initial resource. You can see in the investor deck, we've got that higher grade core, where we've got, 96 million tons at 0.34, and within that 28 million tons at 0.38. Dumont life of mine grade was around 0.27. And so, if we're able to put through many years of, 30%, 40% higher grade through, that will help. If we're able to get several, percentage points better recovery during that time frame, that's another increment. And then if we've got this additional PGM material that we're able to throw in, the combination of all three of those things, can really move the needle in terms of what the economics look like. So, that's the reason I'm so keen to be able to get this, scoping study done by the end of the year to really show, what this project, clearly show, what I think in my head this project's worth. So.
Yeah, I mean, it looks, the initial results look absolutely fantastic. As a shareholder, I'm very pleased with the price movement on the stock. I think a lot of us are, and looking forward to what you're going to do this year. So on that note, what are you, you're going to continue on with the drilling now? You're not stopping for anything?
Yeah, no, we've been able to, and we've been very fortunate, that we've got, a good group of suppliers. NPLH in Timmins has done a great job for us. And again, we want to be able to work safely. And so we've been fortunate that they've been able to structure the work that has allowed them to continue to work safely. Our own workplace, again, in terms of being able to work at an appropriate distance that's safe, we've been able to continue that. So yeah, we've continued to drill through March and April. We've got a number of holes pending. You can see from the release that we just put out. And we'll ramp that drilling up through May, June. We'll put a new resource out in July. We'll have another resource out and updated in October, and then we'll have the scoping study done by year end. So there will be a pretty steady series of news flow on that front. We'll also have all the mineralogy results again as we go through the additional work and additional phases on that front. We'll continue to update the market pretty regularly on our progress there. And then again, the scoping study, we're getting the team together right now, and there'll be some news releases out shortly in terms of who that team is going to be to be able to get that scoping study, by year. And I'm very happy with, how we've been able to pull that together.
Yeah, big congratulations. I know, you came from a very popular project and now you came on to this, and this has all the hallmarks of a very large, long life deposit. Just off the top of your head, Crawford alone, I mean, it's looking like multi-billion ton deposit. And then you add in these other 5 structures. Do you think you'll ever get to drill them all off before majors start really coming in and nudging your shoulders saying, hey,
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, again, that scoping study to feasibility time frame is the time they typically start to pounce on the juniors. So, the key thing for us is to continue to unlock value, for shareholders. So, the focus will be on sort of the existing Crawford, and then doing the geophysics to highlight the potential of some of the others. So we'll see. I'd like to be able to have not drilled off, at least tested, 2 or 3 or more. My view in picking up these 5 targets is that at some point, 2 or 3 of them will end up with a resource that will end up in an overall, large Crawford mine plan. But that's probably still sort of, sometime between the next 12 and 24 months away. We're in a very fortunate position to have, a huge amount of targets to go after, and a huge amount of, again, it's nice to be able to do kilometer step outs confidently. That's the thing that I think people need to realize is, we can add, a huge amount of resource for very little exploration dollars, and create a huge amount of value for shareholders with very, very few exploration dollars.
So with everything going on with COVID, you're pretty up to speed on the nickel market. What are you seeing for projections? Do you still feel like we're going to enter a nickel super cycle? Do you think COVID's kind of held that down a little bit? What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So, if we go back, last September, October, publicly quoted as saying, that the price was going to roll over and head down to $12,000 or $13,000 a ton, which it did. At last fall, I talked about the market starting to recover from that drop off in July, August. Once COVID appeared, I said, look, we're really looking by, I think the same thing's going to happen, but it'll take to year end. I would really encourage investors to take a look, not just at nickel, but in commodities in general. China let us out of the commodity trough in 2008-9. And there were some very clear indicators in January and February of 2009, that we were on that path, moving on that path higher. And we're starting to see the same things happen across a range of metals. In the nickel space, COVID has impacted demand, but for a lot of materials, it's also had a pretty big impact on supply. So for us, the nickel market, the Philippines mines, needed to step up to replace the ore that's no longer coming from Indonesia. And we didn't think they weren't going to completely to do that, but those mines have been basically shut now for several months. So you've seen ore stockpiles in China drop fairly dramatically. And so, so you see a lot of the physical market indicators in China, getting to pretty decent numbers. So, I think I'm not going to say we're going to start recovering sooner than the end of the year at this point. But we may get there, it might not be December, maybe it's September, October. So, I'm cautiously optimistic in terms of, what we're seeing in the nickel market there. Longer term, like there's no, I think the thing that COVID's going to help potentially on the EV side is that, governments around the world are going to look for ways to stimulate their economy. And one of the things you hear a lot of talk about is how do we sort of reshape our global economy, take this opportunity to sort of, reshape or rebuild our economy in a way that we would like to for the future. And so obviously clean energy, clean vehicles is going to be a major part of that. So, I think, we'll see a range of incentives for people to buy things in general. But I think clean cars are going to be a big benefactor of those types, and some very targeted incentives emerge, over this next 6 to 12 months. So, no, I think the EV thematic is as strong or even stronger post-COVID, in the medium to long term, which is obviously where we're focused.
Well, appreciate your views on all this, and thanks for taking the time to give me an update on Crawford. I'm going to try to make it back out to site and get eyes on the prize, if you will, pretty soon.
Yep.
So All the snow is pretty much gone now up in the north, so we're good. So I hope you and your family are safe and well, and we'll catch up with you sooner than later.
No, sounds good, Mike. Thanks. And then hopefully when you come to site the next time in another month or two, we'll have some bags of Crawford concentrate you can hold on to. So
how about you give me some for my rock collection back there?
Yep, most definitely. Most definitely.
Right on. Thank you so much, Mark. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Mike. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, cheers.